There's a method to generate electricity that requires no fuel, no solar panels, no moving parts, just two pieces of metal and the wet dirt beneath your feet. The United States government powered their entire national telegraph network with it in 1848. Official reports still sit in the Smithsonian archives. Indigenous communities across four continents have known about it for over 2,000 years. It works in daylight, in darkness, under tree cover, through rain, through snow, through every condition that kills a solar panel. And it costs less than $5 to build. Then someone in a boardroom calculated the threat. The global battery industry generates over $150 billion every single year. Alkaline cells, lithium packs, lead acid blocks. Every single product in that market depends on one elegant principle. Energy must be purchased, consumed, and repurchased. A method that pulls electricity directly from the ground using materials that cannot be patented is not an innovation to celebrate. It is a business model to bury. They did not stop using it because it failed. They stopped teaching it because it worked too well. This is the story of the Earth battery, the power source that empires trusted and corporations erased. Welcome to Forbidden Camping. If these stories matter to you, the subscribe button and the bell are the best way to make sure this knowledge survives. Here we open the vaults the industry locked shut. Now let me take you back to where this all begins. 185 years before the first smartphone battery was ever manufactured, a Scottish inventor named Alexander Bain stood in a muddy field outside Edinburgh with a radical hypothesis. The year was 1841. Bain had been experimenting with electric clocks and telegraph systems when he noticed something that changed everything he understood about power generation. He buried two different metals in the wet earth about 3 feet apart. One was copper, the other was zinc. Then he connected them with a wire. Current flowed. Not a spark, not a flicker, a steady, measurable, usable electrical current pulled directly from the ground with no combustion, no mechanical motion, no external power source of any kind. Bain did not stumble onto a curiosity. He had discovered a law of physics hiding in plain sight beneath every farmer's field, every forest floor, every backyard on the planet. Within 2 years, Bain had patented his Earth battery system and demonstrated that it could power telegraph lines across significant distances without any traditional power source. The British scientific community documented his findings. The technology worked. But here is where the first shadow falls across this story. The companies that controlled the telegraph industry had already invested fortunes in chemical batteries that required constant replacement. A system that generated power indefinitely from dirt and two cheap metals threatened every revenue projection on their books. Bain's patents were challenged, his funding dried up, and within a decade, Alexander Bain's Earth battery had been quietly shuffled into the footnotes of electrical engineering history, mentioned only in academic papers that almost no one outside of specialized archives ever reads. But the technology did not die. It simply went underground in more ways than one. 50 years after Bain's discovery, a melon farmer in rural Kentucky picked up where the Scottish inventor had left off, and what he accomplished makes Bain's work look like a rough draft. Nathan Stubblefield had no formal training in electrical engineering. What he had was relentless curiosity, an intuitive grasp of natural phenomena, and a farm full of wet Kentucky soil perfect for experimentation. By the 1890s, Stubblefield had refined the Earth battery concept into something that sounded like science fiction. He was transmitting voice signals through the ground itself, wireless telephony powered by nothing but metal rods buried in dirt. No wires connecting the transmitter to the receiver, no external batteries, no generators. Just the electrical potential of the Earth, harnessed and directed with precision. In 1902, Stubblefield gave a public demonstration in Philadelphia that drew crowds of onlookers and coverage from major newspapers. He placed one unit on a steamboat in the Potomac River and another on the shore. Clear voice transmission traveled across the water, powered entirely by Earth batteries on both ends. Witnesses documented the event. The technology was real. It was demonstrated. It was validated in front of journalists, scientists, and potential investors. And then, Nathan Stubblefield watched every door close in his face. The major telecommunications companies of the era showed no interest in a system that eliminated the need for their proprietary power infrastructure. Investors who understood the technology also understood that it threatened existing monopolies far more powerful than any individual inventor. Funding evaporated, partnerships collapsed, and Nathan Stubblefield, the man who had demonstrated wireless, earth-powered communication a full decade before most people knew wireless technology was even possible, died alone in 1928 in a small shack on his Kentucky farm. His body was discovered weeks after he passed. He had starved to death, surrounded by the remnants of a technology that should have made him one of the most celebrated inventors in American history. Think about that for a long moment. A man demonstrated functional wireless communication powered by the Earth itself. Major newspapers covered the event. Scientists validated the results, and he died forgotten, in poverty, while companies that could have commercialized his work chose instead to pretend it never existed. This is not incompetence. This is strategy. But even Stubblefield's story is not the beginning. The knowledge he refined had been waiting in the archaeological record for over 2,000 years before he was born. And the evidence is sitting in a museum right now, labeled with a name that most history books refuse to explain. In 1936, a German archaeologist named Wilhelm Koenig was working at the Baghdad Museum in Iraq when he encountered an artifact that defied every assumption about ancient technology. It was a simple clay jar, roughly the size of a fist, containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod separated by an insulating plug. The jar dated to approximately 250 BCE, meaning it was manufactured during the Parthian Empire, over 2 millennia before the first modern battery was invented. Koenig recognized immediately what he was looking at: the copper-iron configuration, the separation gap, the vessel designed to hold liquid. It was a battery, an ancient, functional electrochemical battery, built more than 2,000 years before Alessandro Volta ever connected the first voltaic pile. The discovery was published, the artifact was studied, and the scientific community did what it so often does when evidence threatens established timelines. It argued, hedged, demanded more proof, and ultimately filed the whole thing under unexplained anomaly, rather than rewriting any textbooks. But the evidence did not stop accumulating. In the 1940s, researchers at General Electric decided to settle the question experimentally. They built exact replicas of the Baghdad battery using the same materials available in the ancient world: copper, iron, and grape juice as the acidic electrolyte. The replicas produced measurable electrical current, not enough to power a modern device, but absolutely enough to demonstrate that the principle was understood and functional over 2,000 years ago. The artifact is real. The science is verified. And the implication is staggering. Humanity has known how to generate electricity from simple materials since before the Roman Empire reached its peak. This is not a modern discovery that fell out of fashion. This is ancient knowledge that survived for millennia, was rediscovered in the 1800s, was demonstrated repeatedly by multiple independent inventors, and was systematically excluded from mainstream awareness every single time it threatened an established industry. The question is no longer whether Earth batteries work. The question is why you were never taught that they exist. And the answer, as it almost always is, comes down to money. But before we follow that money, you need to understand exactly what happens inside the soil when you bury two different metals in the ground. This takes 90 seconds to grasp, and it is the exact knowledge the battery industry prays you never connect to the hardware store aisle. The phenomenon is called galvanic corrosion. When two different metals are placed in contact through an electrolyte, a conductive solution that allows ions to move between them, electrons flow from the more reactive metal to the less reactive metal. That flow of electrons is electrical current. It is the exact same principle that powers every battery you have ever purchased. The only difference is the electrolyte. Commercial batteries use carefully engineered chemical pastes sealed inside metal casings. Earth batteries use the ground itself. Soil is not just dirt. It is a mix of water, mineral salts, organic acids, decomposing biological material, and dissolved ions. Every cubic foot of moist earth is a natural electrolyte waiting to be activated. The United States Department of Agriculture has conducted extensive surveys on soil conductivity across the country. Their data shows that ordinary backyard soil in most regions contains more than enough ionic content to support sustained electrochemical reactions between buried metals. You do not need special soil. You do not need additives. You just need moisture and two metals that sit far enough apart on the galvanic series to create a voltage differential. And the voltage potentials are not theoretical. They are documented, measured, and consistent across thousands of experiments. Copper paired with zinc produces approximately 1.1 volts per cell. Copper paired with magnesium produces nearly 2 volts. Copper paired with aluminum generates around 1.5 volts. These numbers do not change based on who measures them or where the measurement takes place. They are physical constants determined by the electrochemical properties of the metals themselves. A single cell produces modest voltage, but cells connected in series multiply that voltage with simple arithmetic. 10 copper-zinc cells wired in series produce 11 volts. 20 cells produce 22 volts. The same principle that stacks batteries in a flashlight applies directly to metal rods buried in the ground. Modern academic research has confirmed what Bain and Stubblefield discovered over a century ago. Studies from the University of Wisconsin and MIT have tested earth battery configurations in controlled environments and found that properly installed cells show minimal degradation over months of continuous use. The metals corrode slowly, the electrolyte remains stable, and the current flows without interruption through weather conditions that would disable solar panels completely. The science is peer-reviewed. The technology is tested. The materials are cheap and abundant. And yet, if you search for earth batteries at any major retailer, you will find exactly 0 products for sale. Not one. That silence is not an accident. Let me show you what the silence protects. The global battery market is projected to exceed $200 billion by 2030. Every year, American households alone spend an average of over $100 on disposable batteries. Alkaline cells for remotes and flashlights, lithium packs for phones and laptops, lead-acid blocks for cars and backup systems. And every single one of those products shares the same fundamental business model. They degrade, they expire, they require replacement. A lithium phone battery loses significant capacity within 2 years. An alkaline cell drains on the shelf even when unused. A lead-acid block corrodes internally whether you use it or not. Every product is engineered around a guaranteed repurchase cycle. The industry does not sell you power. It sells you temporary access to power, with a built-in expiration date that ensures you will return to buy more. Now consider the earth battery from a corporate perspective. The materials cannot be patented because they are basic elements: copper, zinc, iron, magnesium. You cannot trademark a natural electrochemical reaction. You cannot license the conductivity of soil. There is no proprietary technology to protect, no subscription to enforce, no consumable component that forces repeat purchases. A teenager with $10 and a trip to the hardware store can build a power source that charges devices indefinitely without ever entering a commercial transaction again. That is not a product opportunity. That is an existential threat to every revenue forecast in the industry. So the industry did what industries always do when a cheap solution threatens expensive revenue. They did not ban earth batteries. That would draw attention. They did not refute the science. That would require acknowledging the science exists. Instead, they simply erased the knowledge from the places where people learn. Look at any high school physics textbook published in the last 50 years. You will find detailed chapters on chemical batteries, solar cells, generators, turbines, and nuclear fission. You will find almost nothing about Earth batteries. Not because the science is questionable, because the science is too accessible. Electrical engineering curricula at major universities cover electrochemistry extensively, but case studies focus almost exclusively on commercial applications, patents, products, revenue models. Earth batteries appear, when they appear at all, as historical footnotes or classroom demonstrations, never as practical alternatives to the systems that pay for research grants and alumni donations. The suppression is not dramatic. It is curricular. It works not by attacking the technology, but by controlling what gets taught, what gets funded, and what gets remembered. And the result is a population that spends billions of dollars every year on power storage while sitting on top of an unlimited supply of free electricity that costs less than a fast food meal to access. You have paid for this knowledge already. You just never received it. So here is exactly how to take it back. Go to any hardware store. Purchase solid copper wire, 14 gauge or thicker. Purchase galvanized steel nails or zinc-coated hardware. The zinc coating on galvanized steel is the key. It creates the voltage differential with copper that drives the electrochemical reaction. Cut your copper wire into sections approximately 12 inches long. Each section will form one electrode. Your galvanized nails will form the other electrode in each cell. Choose a location with moist soil. The higher the moisture content, the better the conductivity. Areas near downspouts, garden beds, or naturally damp ground work best. Avoid sandy or extremely dry locations unless you plan to water the installation regularly. For each cell, bury one copper electrode and one zinc electrode approximately 6 to 12 inches apart, both driven at least 8 inches into the ground. The depth ensures stable contact with moist soil below the evaporation zone. Now the critical step. To build voltage, you connect cells in series. This means running a wire from the copper electrode of one cell to the zinc electrode of the next cell. Each connection adds the voltage of the new cell to the total. The zinc of the first cell and the copper of the last cell become your positive and negative output terminals. 10 cells connected this way produce approximately 11 volts. 15 cells produce around 16 volts. 20 cells produce roughly 22 volts, more than enough to charge any USB device through a simple voltage regulator. Purchase a buck converter or voltage regulator module, available online or at electronics stores for around $2. Set the output to 5 volts. Connect your Earth battery array to the input. Connect a USB port to the output. You now have a charging station that costs less than $5 in total materials, requires no fuel, no sunlight, and no replacement parts beyond occasional electrode maintenance. For comparison, a quality portable solar panel with similar output capacity costs between $50 and $150, works only in direct sunlight, and degrades noticeably within 3 to 5 years. A lithium power bank costs $30 to $80, holds a finite charge, and loses capacity with every cycle until it becomes landfill within 2 to 4 years. Your Earth battery works at night. It works in the shade. It works in rain. It works in snow. The electrodes corrode slowly over months or years depending on soil acidity, and when they do, you replace a few dollars worth of hardware store supplies. No recycling programs, no shipping delays, no planned obsolescence. You are not building a prototype of some theoretical future technology. You are building the same system that powered government communications in 1848. The same system that transmitted wireless voice in 1902. The same system that civilizations understood before the Roman Empire fell. The only difference is that now you know it exists. But I need to be honest with you about the limitations, because credibility matters more than hype. Earth batteries produce low current. They excel at low-power applications like charging phones, running LED lights, powering sensors and small electronics. They will not run your refrigerator. They will not power your air conditioner. The voltage scales easily with more cells, but the current remains limited by the surface area of your electrodes and the conductivity of your specific soil. Dry soil dramatically reduces output. If you live in an arid climate, you will need to water your installation regularly or accept intermittent performance. Sandy soil conducts poorly compared to clay-rich or organic soil. Your results will vary based on local conditions. The zinc electrodes corrode over time. This is the intended mechanism. The zinc sacrifices itself to generate current. In aggressive soil conditions, you may need to replace electrodes every 6 months to a year. In milder conditions, electrodes can last several years before significant degradation. This technology supplements your power options. It does not replace your entire grid connection. But for emergency backup, off-grid camping, remote sensors, garden lighting, device charging, and resilience against power outages, it provides something no commercial product can match: genuinely free electricity from materials you control completely. Alexander Bain died watching his patents challenged into oblivion by corporations that could not afford his solution to succeed. Nathan Stubblefield starved to death in a Kentucky shack while the technology he demonstrated was erased from public memory. The Baghdad battery sat in a museum for decades, labeled as an anomaly, rather than evidence that humanity understood electrochemistry 2,000 years before we claim to have invented it. But knowledge does not disappear just because it becomes inconvenient. It waits. It resurfaces. It spreads through channels that accountants cannot audit and executives cannot acquire. No industry can patent a law of physics. No algorithm can erase an electrochemical reaction. No marketing budget can convince the copper and zinc in your backyard that they are not supposed to generate current when buried in wet earth. The information is free. The materials are common. The only remaining variable is whether you do something with it. If this fault changed how you think about power, energy independence, or the systems that decide what you are allowed to know, then subscribe and share this video now. Every share puts a crack in the wall they spent decades building around knowledge that was never theirs to hide. Every subscription keeps this channel digging into the vaults they assumed would stay closed forever. The next vault opens soon, and what is inside is the method that lets you pull clean drinking water